Hey guys, I'm the Mediocre Coder and I'm back with another video. This video will be part 4. The last video we made our camera controller script, and that script basically repositions the camera and centers the board, and the camera is now repositioned dynamically so that no matter what size the board is, we can easily see it fully, uh, regardless of our dimensions. So I just want to test it real quick again. So in our camera controller, we have padding here. We can increase that to 3 and it'll add more spacing. And then our board game object will increase the width to be 6 and 7. If we play it, you'll see that we can see the whole board and everything in it, and it's centered as well. So if I change the camera's padding to 2, then it gets zoomed in a little bit because there's now less space. Then if I change it to 4, it's zoomed out because there's more space. So what we want to do now is improve our spawning logic. We don't want to just spawn any random dot. We want to spawn the dot, but also initialize different properties of that dot and be able to decide what properties to add to which dot, because all the dots are going to be different when we build this out and we create more dots. So we want a uniform and scalable approach to assigning these dots in there, initializing them. So I also want to cover in this video getting some color on the board. So these dots will have, the normal dots will have color on them. Each normal dot will have a random color on the board, but we need logic to assign those colors. And without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is create my folders that I need. So in the assets folder, I'm going to do create folder and create a folder for enums, which that's short for enumerations. And then we need a folder for our interfaces. And another folder for gameplay. We'll put our board script in here too. Another folder for utils. And then another folder for factories. So factories is a way, it's like a design pattern, how we're going to figure out what dot to spawn and how to initialize it. So what I'm going to do now is going to go into my scripts. Actually, all of these folders should be in the scripts folder. So I'm going to drag and drop in there. And then I'm going to put the board folder in my gameplay folder. And I think I created that off the video, so you probably don't have a board folder. And I might just want to get it out of this folder anyway and just keep it in the gameplay folder by itself alone, and then delete the board folder. Okay, now I'm going to make our scripts. So in the enums folder, we need a C# script. So I'm going to make an empty C# script and call it DotType. And I'll explain what that is in a second. And then empty C# script. It's going to be .color. In the factories folder, we need an empty C# script called dots factory. Interfaces, we're going to need a script called IColorable. Alright, and then finally in the utils has to be in scripts as well. Okay, so in the utils folder, we need a color scheme manager script. Also in the gameplay, I'm going to make or we can put this in utils. I'll make a script called, I'm going to make it a scriptable object script, and I'm going to call it PrefabLibrary. Okay, so let's do the easy part first. I'm going to go into my .type folder or a script, and we're going to create a enum from this, and the enum is going to hold all of our types. So, you know, in the game Two Dots, there's a bunch of different types of dots. There's the normal dot, the blank dot, monster dot, lotus dot, nesting dot, bomb dot, and you know, a bunch of other dots, and they all have a type. The different types of dots that we have for right now are just normal dot and blank dot. So I'm going to put that in here. So that's pretty much done, because that's all we have in our game right now. In the dot color class, we're going to have about 6 colors. In the game, there's a total of no more than 5 colors for each level, and that doesn't include the blank dot, because the blank dot isn't really a color dot. It's like the anti-color dot. It's the opposite of a color. So, but I'm still going to add blank to the dot color enum. So it's going to be blank, and I have to specify that this is an enum. It's going to be blank, red. Next, I'm going to create my interface. So this is just going to be a way that we know, okay, which dot is a dot that has a color property or a color attribute, and which dot is something that doesn't have a color to it. So that all that means is saying that if I say public, let's say dot color, because this is going to be the color of our dot, and I say color, I have to specify that it is a public getter, and then we can rename this to capitalize it. And then if I say public dot color set color, pass in a dot color. So what this is saying is, oh, I'm sorry, this has to be an interface as well. That's why it's throwing an error. So we have to say that this is an interface. And what all this is saying is that any class that we make that will implement this interface, or say that it implements this interface, will need to have these methods and attributes in that code or in the class. So we have to say that, okay, this class has a color and a set color method. The normal dots are going to be IColorable, so we can actually go in here in the dot class and say comma IColorable, and that means that it inherits from mono behavior, which is what all Unity game objects inherit from, and it also implements IColorable interface. So since our dot is a color dot, we need to implement all of the interface's attributes and methods. So I'm going to press Command period and do implement interface. So now it automatically put in everything that's in the IColorable interface and put it in this class. So that's the nature of the interface. We have to, it makes a contract that we have to implement all of these methods and attributes that are defined in the interface. So right now I'm just going to say color equals color, and this will be private. And actually we shouldn't have done this in here, so we want to make a new script actually. So let's do that. It's gonna be normal dot, because the dot class actually is just gonna be we'll qualify it as abstract. It's gonna be a class that isn't, you know, a concrete class. It's just gonna be a generic class that all dots will inherit from. So I'll move the IColorable into here, say normal dot mono, or it'll extend from dot, and it'll also be IColorable. All right, so now with this normal dot class, I'm going to implement the interface again. And now we can say, we can make a private field called color. And all we need to do now is just say this dot color is going to be equal to, or it's going to return the color, the private color field we have here. So now in set color, we can implement that and say color equals color. And we have to say this dot color equals color. And actually this will be void. We don't want to return anything here. So it'll just be void here. And that's about it for the normal dot for now. But the blank dot is also a color dot, a colorable dot. It's just a little different. It's a special case because only blank dots can only be blank. So if I build this out, all right, so this needs to extend from dot, and it's also IColorable. I'm going to implement the interface, but this time when we return the color, we're just going to return dot color dot blank. And then in the set color, we're not going to really do anything. And honestly, in the color class, we can just say that this is a public get and a public set. That makes it easier. So we don't need this. But now what we need to do is say get dot color dot blank, and then a set equals throw new exception blank dot cannot be set. Or blank dot color cannot be set. All right. So then we don't need this. And that's going to be it for the blank dot. We're going to have to fix this error as well. So it's just going to be the same syntax. Get color and set color equals value. Okay, now let's create our color manager class. So the color manager is what's going to allow us to convert a dot color to an actual Unity engine color. So I'll say public color32. We're basically going to list out all the colors that we have in our game that a dot can be. So we can reference our dot color script. We have blank, red, yellow, green, blue, purple. So we'll need to map all of that again in the color manager class. So we'll say public color32 blank. Okay, I've got all my colors now. Then we need a method that's going to return a color32. It's going to be from dot color. It's going to take in a dot color variable or value, and it's going to use a switch statement to basically decide from the color that's passed in what color we want to return. So we're going to return, in the case that the color is blank, we're going to return the blank color 32. And I'm going to do the same thing for each color. Okay, now we need a default case. The default case is what's going to happen when none of those cases above are true. So what we'll do is we'll just throw an error. So throw new error, or exception rather. It'll be an argument exception. And we'll say no color found. Let's say no color found that matches the given dot color. Now that our from dot color method is done, we want to make a method called get random color. So all we need to do here is just say dot color, make it sure it's an array. We're going to call it colors, and then we'll write code that will get a list of all of our enum values in that dot color enum. So that's how you get all the enum members in an enum. And so now what we need to do is just get a random color from that array of colors. So just like before, I'm just going to say int rand and get a random color from the list of colors or array of colors. Now all we need to do is return a random color. Okay, so now let's move on to the prefab library. So in utils, we have our prefab library. So Unity automatically created this attribute called create asset menu, and what that's doing is just saying that we're going to have a menu item when we right click in the project folder that's going to be called prefab library, and it's going to be nested inside of the scriptable objects menu item. And when we create the file, it's going to automatically create this prefab library name, file name. So now in here we can say public, let's say list dot, we're going to call it dots. We could actually make this private. Let's make it private and then do serialized field so that way we can set it in the inspector. And we'll do a public method that will return a dot, and we'll say get dot prefab. And the get dot prefab will take in a type, and we'll say return dots dot first or default, which is going to loop through all the dots and see which one matches the given condition. So the given condition is going to be dot type, or dot get type equals type of type, or just type. And we have to make this a singleton. So scriptable object or scriptable singleton. This will allow us to access the scriptable object anywhere in our code. And we just pass in prefab library as the type of the scriptable object. I actually want to change this type from system library to be DotType, which is going to be our dots type that we created from the enum. And what we're going to return is a dot from the list, and we'll say if dot type is equal to a type that we pass in. So now what we need to do is create this type attribute because it's giving us an error. So I can do command period and then let's say generate variable type. It's going to be a property. And I'm going to change this to private set. And actually we'll need a backing field for this. So we'll say private, or first we'll say serialized field private dot type, or just type. And then when we get this dot type, we'll say type right here. And we won't be able to set it. We'll make it so there's no setting that can happen to this type. We just want to be able to set it in the inspector, and that's it. Like no other mutation of this attribute. So now that works now. So we're saying if the type of the dot is the same as a given type, then we return that dot. So now in our board class, all we need to do is say PrefabLibrary .instance .get.prefab. We pass in the dot type that we want, which we've already created. We said random type, so we can say random type here, and that will instantiate the dot we want. And we don't need to do this get component dot because it's already a dot. We're already passing in a dot because this get.prefab returns a dot. And that really increases performance because get component is really costly. So if we don't have to do get component, we shouldn't do it because it just allows us to leverage performance. Alright, so guys, the actual video has gone on a little longer than I expected. So I'm going to break this up into two parts. This will end the first part, and then in the next part we'll work on the dot factory and the level script and getting all of it refined or fleshed out so that we can start seeing the dots being spawned on the board with different colors for each dot. And so this will conclude our video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. As always, be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later.